Let me ask you a question. Is one of your goals this summer to break 100 or break 90? If so, this message is for you. Breaking those score barriers can be an exciting goal, but can also lead to frustration when you have come so close to doing it before and just can't break through. Or how about this? You've broken 100 or 90 before, but you haven't been able to do it again in a long time. I get it. I've been there before with my own score barriers and goals. It wasn't until I refocused the way I practiced and actually learned the importance around course management and strategy where my game went to the next level. And here's the best part. I didn't have to change my swing to do it. And because of that, I have partnered with teaching professional Justin Klimbala to bring you the Breaking Bogeys membership. Justin and I designed this coaching membership specifically for golfers who want to break 100 or break 90 this upcoming season. Each week we will have live trainings with an opportunity for Q&A, weekly homework and accountability, additional technique and drill videos exclusive for this group, and last but not least, a community where you will be joining other golfers with the same exact goal. So whether you want to break 90 or break 100, you will be able to go on this journey together and support and cheer each other on throughout. Now, while we're working towards these score barrier goals, my bet is that while you're focusing on your game with this membership, some of your best play will happen during competitions, tournaments, and guest days this summer. But that's just a bonus. So come join us as we tackle these golf goals, because this summer is when we are going to take your game to the next level. For more information and to register, visit breakingbogeys.com. That's breakingbogeys.com for all the information you'll need to sign up.
Next up on the number one tee.
Andrew's here tonight to talk about the steps to increasing club head speed and ball speed, and he's got 8 steps to go over tonight. Myself and Justin will be asking you questions throughout if something comes up.
So my philosophy on gaining speed, and when players come up to me at any range of age, like, I have a lot of questions, right? So it's everyone wants it quickly. It's one of those where I have a lot of questions towards, what's their habits like currently, not only with stuff in the gym, but stuff on the course, but just their daily habits, right? And then asking a bunch of questions, what a lot of people don't want to hear. But with these steps, it might look different to some, because when I talk to you on your podcast, it's going to be a lot of that.
That's a very good question from Mobility Stick.
No, the other one. No, the other one.
Oh,
way back.
Zach Gully. Zach. Yes.
It's got to be the same steps there, where it's just like my steps, like I have I'm a trainer. So having like gym, speed sticks, like that's at the end until we get established these other steps in the beginning. So I'll just kind of go over that. So how I kind of went into this, again, I try to take like a long-term approach, right? Especially if someone comes in, like if Tori comes in, she's asking me, hey, I want to gain some speed in the general sense. Like, I'm going to go more specific, like on what that means to her. And like, we're going to go through steps of, what your coach says, what the next 4 to 6 weeks look like. So this is kind of how my brain works, right? So first step, like number 1, getting with your swing coach and establish a technique plan and establish baselines. So what I mean by that is, over the time, for getting with your coach, and you're working on certain technique aspects of your swing, like go into it with a specific plan, telling them or her, hey, I want to gain some speed. Like, what should I do technique wise or feedback wise to help me get there? And that might be even like a few things to work on just to hit the ball, your drives, and square up the club face a little bit better. There's been stuff out there that says even doing that gains a little bit of yardage if you keep on working on facing up that club face off the tee. So it could be anything from swing path to, what your face angle is at impact. That should be number 1. Is it a technique thing? And then once you're there, most coaches have a TrackMan or some sort of like swing monitor system. That's where you establish some numbers. So a lot of people come up to me not even knowing where they're even starting from. So understanding and kind of having a baseline, what that looks like, what an average is, smash factor, all that, getting those numbers is going to help. So you kind of know where you need to go and where you want to be at. Because like I said, some people don't know. Some players are just kind of guessing on just based on when they play. They're not hitting as far as their peers or their friends. Like, let's find some numbers and see really what that looks like. So you kind of know where you want to go. Step 2, just setting some goals. So that, again, that can go with your swing coach. That can go on what's important to you. Establish some expectations, like how long is this going to take? Like realistically, it could take, again, 4 to 6 weeks. You might see some increase, half a year. So if depending on if you're playing the long game or you do want something quick, the approach is going to be different. And look how much time you're willing to work on this part of your game. So I really try to tell people, like, okay, what's your schedule look like the next, 3 to 5 weeks? Do you have not much planned? Do you have a lot of golf planned? Do you have traveling planned? So that's key too. So it's like you can't just work on this for a week, swing some speed sticks around, have one lesson, and then go out of town for 2 weeks. Like, that's just not going to make sense. So making sure you have set goals, you have a schedule kind of planned out on, okay, I'm gonna at least try to work on this for at least 3 to 5 weeks and see what happens and make adjustments there.
After we talked to Lou last week, I think it was shortly after, Andrew, I was texting you saying, okay, I'm ready to go again. Yeah. And your first question to me was, well, what does your schedule look like? Do you have any big events coming up? And I mean, one of the main reasons why I texted Andrew is I know that I don't have anything big coming up the next couple weeks. So it makes sense. So
we're going down number 3. So getting with swing coach, establish some goals, some expectations. Number 3, you can now find access to some sort of radar tool or plan to get with that swing coach again every 2 to 3 weeks to kind of retest your numbers. So again, you're working on the thing your coach gave you to kind of square up that club face, work on your path. You set some goals and expectations, right? So now it's planning out times where either we purchase some sort of monitoring systems where you can retest every week, or if you don't have access, again, getting with your coach during that time, taking that sacrifice, invest in that to kind of see where you're at. So again, a lot of players going into it too blind where it's, they're guessing, they're trying, they're again swinging some speed sticks around, but not really using any sort of measuring tool or way to quantify their progress. And they're just waiting for it to happen. They're going off feeling. Like, get some data and understand, okay, where am I going? What adjustments do I need to make? And then kind of look at your next steps, right?
Yeah, and Andrew, I'm going to have Justin chime in on this too.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Justin, how does someone go about this? Like, do you always have your TrackMan on you, or for an instructor, do you really need to be told, okay, can you bring the TrackMan out so that you can track my numbers? You can see what my numbers look like.
Yeah, I think it depends on the instructor. I mean, where I teach at Paradise Valley, I have the TrackMan always on me because I'm in the learning center all the time. But at Forest Highlands, we do have a TrackMan, but it's not exclusively used just for myself. So I only kind of bring it out when I know somebody wants to use it. So I think it's always better safe than sorry to actually reach out to your instructor and say, hey, I am interested in working with the launch monitor today. I want to measure my swing speed. And then also just when it comes to just measuring your own swing speed, I did look up that PRGR, the pocket launch monitor that the Stack system suggests, and also the Super Speed Sticks suggest. I think it's only like $100 or something like that, but it's always good to just have something where you can just test yourself every once in a while. And the PRGR is a really good one that you can just have in your own, and it's pretty small. You can easily fit it in your golf bag. So I think sometimes that alone is really good motivation just to be able to constantly be rechecking yourself, as Andrew's talking about here.
So now this is where we start kind of putting practice into play. So again, a lot of people will have some pushback towards this because either, they kind of go into a practice schedule blind, or again, they just kind of work on their usual routine. So that's where I just try to be more conservative with, committing 1 to 2 times a week to push limits when practicing. So what that means is, saving like some time during your practice routine and really like going all out. And this is where, technique and certain aspects of your swing might go out the window just because you need to kind of see what that looks like and what that feels like. So examples I give is the 3-strike method, which I'll explain in a little bit. TPI uses that. And then what I've done with clients that I can't see in person, and then if they have access to TrackMan or Launch Monitor, I have an Excel sheet that I use, and one time a week during their even training program, I have them go out to the range or, again, a TrackMan sort of session somewhere else. And I give them, okay, I want you to do 10 to 15 driver swings. So I'll have them do like 5 warm-up swings, record that, record the number of their swing speed, and then like competitive swing, 5 of those, or like a fairway finder, record your numbers there. And then 5 to 10, like going all out. Like, I don't care what it looks like. Just try to swing as hard as you can and see what your numbers are. And if those numbers aren't different, then it's just like, that's where we have to look at either technique, approach differently when practicing your driver swing or stuff off the tee, just because you're just not creating enough output to produce speed yet. But if you're trying and some numbers are different, then we're making progress. And that's where, unconsciously over time, like your warm-up swing speed should be at your competitive swing, or your competitive swing should start feeling like, all out swings, but the technique is there now. All right. The 3-strike method is what I got from TPI, where, again, it's kind of more of a shorter approach where you kind of keep strikes yourself to the point of like, okay, you start with like some normal swings, just warming up a little bit. Okay. And again, if you have the TrackMan Launch Monitor, this is probably where it's the best, or if you're working with your coach, and then have one swing where it's all out. Okay, see what the number is and record that number. Rest for a little bit, swing again. Okay, if that number is higher or the same, okay, rest a little bit. Okay, go again. If you swing again and that number is lower, okay, that's 1 strike. Okay, so that's where, again, time to take a breath, take your break, swing again. And if you're not hitting that number or getting higher, you keep giving yourself a strike. Once you hit 3 strikes, you're done. So that's just telling you, like, again, you're not producing enough output. You're not swinging hard enough. You're not making progress. You're just pretty much just going through your normal swing. So the more times that you do this and you start producing higher numbers and you start producing higher swings, then you're making progress. It just takes a little bit and takes a few testing times to do that. Does that make sense? Any questions there, Tori?
Yeah, it makes sense, but it is still very surprising to me. So, I mean, even up until a couple months ago, before the whole Bryson DeChambeau long drive journey that he went on, to me, I thought gaining swing speed was just about going to the gym and, doing like special golf fitness workouts, right. really intentional, having intentional workout regimes about that will have to do with golf. But in reality, a lot of it is going to the range and swinging a golf club as fast as you possibly can. And that's surprising to me still. It's like, because you see a lot of things at the range, a lot of, tools and tricks and what people are doing. Do I honestly see people swinging the club as fast as they possibly can? I don't know. Not really.
and you know what's interesting about that? Ben Hogan once, I think, said that like when kids are just getting developed in the game, they should just go for as much speed as possible, because that's naturally what kids are going to want to do anyways. Kids aren't very careful. They're not wondering to like play it safe. They instinctively want to swing as fast as possible. And I remember somebody saying, and I think it was Ben Hogan saying that, just like let them go as fast as possible. But a lot of times parents come along and try to slow them down and try to contain that. But really the place where you actually get to gain the most amount of speed is pushing yourself to that new 100%. What's that new 100% that you can get to? And the goal isn't really that you'll maybe even swing at 100% when you go to play, but the faster you can get that 100% to go faster and faster and faster in practice, it it consequently gets your 80 or 85% to be faster when you're out on the golf course. So many people will watch me swing and they'll be like, oh my God, you swing so fast, because I do swing the club very fast. But a lot of times I'm not swinging at 100%. My 85% just so happens to be faster than most people's 100%, because I've worked as a kid, particularly getting that to be faster and faster and faster. And you don't need to be a kid to swing as fast as you possibly can. Just kids typically have that I don't care type of attitude, which adults could easily adapt, which would then allow them to go to those new limits. But so many times adults want to really hold back and be careful and not ruin anything. But as we talked about last week, sometimes actually swinging as fast as you possibly can subconsciously and organically gets the club to be more on plane. Subconsciously and organically gets you to square the face a lot faster, because when the face is square and the club is swinging on plane, that's where you can swing your fastest. So when you're constantly trying to get to that new 100%, you organically find a much more technical, efficient way to swing the golf club. So yeah, and I've never heard that 3-strike method, and I really love that, only just because so many times people are trying to swing faster, but if they are not doing it, it's just a key that they're probably at their maximum limit, and now they're just learning to be slower and slower. So if you get those 3 strikes, it's time to take it a break for the day and come back another day. So I love that point there.
One more point on that. I try to look at it just from I try to look at other sports too. So if I'm a sprinter training for like 100 meters and all I do is just train long distance or train in the gym just to be a long distance runner, but my race, I'm trying to be faster, like that just doesn't make any sense. Like you have to kind of put the skill into play somehow. I'm gonna have to practice my 50-yard sprints or my 50-meter sprints. I have to do some, high knee drills. I have to do some sort of skill set workouts to kind of push my limits to be faster than 100 meters. If I'm just out there running marathons and doing 400 meters all day, like I'm not going to see any process. It takes a certain amount of skill to kind of gain that speed and actually just do it, put it into play.
The thought of swinging as hard as I can does, like, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my God, I hope I don't hurt myself. Mm-hmm. So is this combining with the gym, like working at the gym is allowing, you are conditioning your body to swing as hard as you can in a very sequential, like, manner. Like that is what we're working on at the gym. Like trying to keep that sequence right so that when we do go out to the range and start swinging like mad women, we're not getting hurt. As does that make sense? And we're staying in sequence as best as possible.
Yeah. And that's where like the last couple steps come in on what like a health and fitness routine would look like on top of. That's why I like to establish like goals and have a plan set. Because it's like, again, you can't skip 1 and 2 and just listen to me. It's like, okay, I'm gonna go out to the range tomorrow and start whipping drivers. Like that's probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
Right. It has to be some sort of dosing and volume check of, okay, I'm just going to try the 3-strike method just for 5 swings and see how I feel. On top of just like what you talked about, you don't see players like swinging away as hard as they can on drivers. And the same thing goes for warming up on the range. Right. So that whole video sequence we did for that golf magazine, like a lot of people, like that's not important to a lot of people because either they're rushed, they don't want to look funny on the range, or they just don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. That's why it's super important to prepare for something like that. Just like if you're preparing just to hit and practice and play any sort of round or even just practicing.
And just so you know, we're getting some awesome questions in the chat. I'm going to have Andrew go through all the steps and we're going to circle back to the chat. So don't think that we're ignoring you. We're going to get back to that. All right, Andrew, on to number 5.
So now we start putting like physical tools in place. So once first 4 are established and plan is in place, have a discussion with your trainer about adding strength training, power, and rotational exercises into your program sessions. If you don't have one, I have 400 posts on certain workouts and exercises that I can send to people, right? Or again, if you don't have a trainer in your area, if you're in different parts of the US or over the world, it's like I know a lot of people that do what I do. So it's like, it's easy to find that sense of community on golf trainers and knowing what they're doing. So don't go into this again blind. If you work with someone who's not even golf specific, like that's okay too. Just kind of mention, hey, I want to start adding some rotational stuff or even some strength and power. If you're not doing that, if you're doing more like hit style circuit training, that's great too. But having some sort of specific approach to make sure you can prepare your body for this sort of training that you're going to be doing on the course, because it takes a different approach. All right. So I'll kind of blow past that one. So number 6, because we'll talk about that more. So now we start getting into like doing all the steps. Now you want to put like some of this training into play. So on days you play golf, this is just something I've thrown out there. You guys can have some take on this too. Like when you're going to play either competitive or even better when you're playing by yourself or with friends, like scope out the scorecard and like look for short par 4s and par 5s and like circle those, knowing like, okay, I'm going to go into this hole and just put into play what I've been training for. Right. So I think that shies a lot of people too, like kind of go into it blind and just hoping something will happen. Like certain like holes, just be ready to kind of make that commitment to just go after it and to see what happens. Right. It could go out of bounds. It could go straight down the fairway, or we can just, hit it pretty good still, where it's like, okay, that was a little bit further. And then that's it. So not caring what happens, just again, having some technique with it, but know you're going to put a little extra on it. But then again, just pick some holes that you feel comfortable with, especially if you're at a club that you're used to, like knowing that, okay, this par 5 is a little bit wider with the fairway. I'm going to try to really attack this hole. Right. So now you're putting it into play. So now number 7, after like 4 to 6 weeks of sticking to the plan and being consistent with it, that's a big word. If progress is there, but not as fast as you want it, like look into speed training aids. So you see like this is number like 7 for me. So stack system, speed sticks, if you're really seeing success, your conditioning is good, your swing is not going off the charts. So now you start implementing like speed tools to kind of kick it into gear, but still having a radar system and some sort of tracking device, because then it's just worthless if you're not. And you're just swinging blindly, you're just pushing volume, you're just building fatigue at that point, where that's where some risk can come involved, right? So preparing for that sort of tool is really smart, right? So then if I get questions about like right away, well, what do you think about the stack system? Again, that's where all these questions come into play. Well, I know you play a lot, so like what's the schedule in the next 3 weeks? Or it's like, I know your trainer, like what have you guys been working on? You've been kind of talking a little bit about some back pain and some neck stuff. Like, is that taken care of first, right? Because again, if you just start swinging away first week and then you're go out of town for the next week, it's just like, what are we really working on, right? Just kind of guessing and hoping something will happen. So have that whole plan in place. This is to me like a perfect schedule. Like, hey, I'm gonna try this for 2 weeks. I have nothing going on. I'm not playing. Like, let's see what happens, right? So to me, like if I'm looking like all week, so again, this is very anecdotal. Like this is a perfect scenario, right? So I'm thinking like Monday, training in the gym, and then just working on short game, right? So you're not, again, hindering any sort of swing technique that you've been working on, but at least you still get some practice in. The next day, working on just like normal practice or even just playing. That Wednesday, you kind of see where it's like I try to take other like training days, normal practice, really come in between like a speed session day on the range. So you want to be pretty prime and like feeling pretty good. So like you gave it your best and you're not tired, you're not sore. And then if it's one of those you want to get gym in, like I would do gym after the speed session, right? And then Thursday I would be like a rest day after recovery. So you give yourself some time to recover after that speed day. Friday, again, normal practice. And then maybe again, kind of throw in some like 10 hard driver swings and like a light training session, right? So again, I'm throwing a lot of like, okay, there's 3 hours. How am I going to have all the time for this? Again, this is just an example, right? So that way you just kind of see like, I don't want like a Wednesday speed session to get robbed by like a Tuesday hard training session, or like you had like a member guest that was 4 days. And then the next day you go straight into like a range 3-strike rule. Like you have to give yourself some time and recovery to make sure you're kind of going after it and you're fresh. And then Saturday, Sunday, like leave that for play. Again, kind of see what happens, make sure you have some recovery in there, do stuff that you enjoy. And then Monday, if you felt like, man, that was a lot during that week, like start substituting some things. Try different days of, okay, I'm gonna try normal practice this day, and then my speed day, I'm gonna leave for the end of the week because I'm not playing golf. So that's where, again, that little work has to go in with scheduling and kind of understanding like when the body's fresh and when you're gonna be primed to kind of go after those speed training days.
So other things to think about, other priorities in life: rest, recovery, sleep, hydration, warm up before you play or hit balls. Consistency is key, patience, process, and then taking advantage more during the winter months, or I'm thinking you're thinking off-season months.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, I had a quick question, Andrew. I had worked with a fitness professional before, and he had talked about the key to probably more power isn't always strength, but it's also like mobility and also flexibility. How much of that do you feel like is important when it comes to hitting the ball farther? Is it all about trying to build strength to be stronger so you can swing the club faster? Or are there other factors such as mobility or flexibility or other factors that I'm not even listing that can help you hit the ball farther and have more power that maybe is not strength related?
Yeah, that's a good question. Since this is a group of women, right? And a lot of, in a sense, not that I disagree with your trainer, where mobility and flexibility, like, that's kind of on a different spectrum from power. It's important, especially in a rotational type of environment like golf, baseball. Like, you want some sort of range of motion access. But with this group that we're talking to of women, like, I'm going to read like a few, then we'll go to the questions. Like this book, Strength Training, Strength and Conditioning for Golf, like this has a lot of research in it. And they have one section, I don't know why, like one chapter committed to female golfers. So I'm just going to read this, like a few highlighted areas. If you have time, take like 2 minutes. Yeah. So it talks about like, research indicating significant relationships between lower body strength and explosive strength, highlights the importance of training these aspects for increased golf performance. And that's for women, right? Then it goes into like stats. It's like 25 to 55% of upper body strength in men. Yeah. Given that women tend to have approximately 25 to 55% of the upper body strength of men. So it's just like, just genetically, physiology, like females from a muscle mass standpoint, it's just science, right? So not saying that's wrong, but going into like training, that's going to make more sense. So that's where it says like the power to weight ratio is going to be different. So for you, having more range of motion, just because we can, in a way, produce more power might help. But for females, as it talks about, because it talked about mobility and flexibility. So let me find that section. So it kind of goes into then like the strength potential and seen with females introduce resistance training. So it talks about fast twitch muscle fibers. It takes longer for them to develop in females. The implications for this when training females is that females may have to be more patient with their training process. The use of relatively heavier resistance is required to stimulate the growth of the fast twitch muscle fibers. If slow twitch fibers predominate, then a more rapid detraining effect could be seen. So basically, fast twitch muscle fibers, again, kind of seen more. You see a lot of, again, like track athletes, men, you see these muscular dudes, even females, they have a lot of power and twitchy muscles. That's what it talks about, like fast two, or more slow twitch. Force production is a little bit lacking, but that's where their endurance is a lot better. But with golf, as we know, needs to produce a little bit more power, especially with those that want to gain speed. So just taking that time to develop muscles in that area, like the fast two muscle types, this takes a little bit longer. So in conclusion, like in female golfers, resistance training has been shown to improve driving performance. And then the last part's really good, talks about like a training program. What's that look like? Which focuses on training muscles activated through the golf swing and a traditional strength program. So that looks like, again, like basic, like squat, deadlift, push, pull. Both training programs increase driver club head speed, 7-iron distance. The post-training effects are greater in the traditional program than the golf-specific. probably due to the fact that golf-specific program replaced many of the traditional compound gym-based exercises. However, the loading was used likely at an inappropriate intensity to facilitate strength adaptation. So basically, if we're doing like a single leg exercise, which is still important, it's hard to load that up and to kind of build those fast twitch fibers, also a little bit of muscle mass and strength compared to like traditional strength training exercises, such again like squat, deadlift, traditional lift you kind of see in the gym. So then it supports the scientific principles and theories that have been investigated and illustrated for all to consider when deciding a golf-specific program for female golfers. So couldn't find that mobility portion, but it kind of talks about like, naturally females are going to be a little bit more hypermobile, right? More flexible. And it talks about trying to gain more range of motion in most situations might actually hinder their chance at like speed and power, because the ranges are already there. So that's where strength training, stability training, things that exercises that kind of make you strong in their gym might increase their process just because it's going to make them stronger and kind of limit their ranges a little bit, but their ranges are already further than men actually in most cases.
Now, when you mentioned fast twitch muscles, this is a very uneducated question, so I don't know the answer, but I've just seen the ropes. I've seen ropes at the gym, and I've seen people doing these like quick wave type, motions. Is that something that's training fast twitch muscles, or are there other types of exercises that like focus in on fast twitch muscles?
Yeah. So an example like that, like we do like a traditional, like heavy rope that you're moving really quickly, can be used, but then that's where the fatigue factor is going to come in. Right. So that's something where a lot of like sort of like HIIT training style workouts use, but then the kind of the risk reward kind of goes the other direction. Because if you're like really moving a heavy rope then you start losing intent after a certain amount of time, then the effects and the progress of that exercise just goes out the window and it just turns into like a cardio exercise. So that's an example I wouldn't use. So fast twitch I would use would be more methods of using like med balls, slamming, throwing against the wall, certain jump activities a lot of females hate, but again, it produces that tissue from the explosive standpoint from the legs and muscles to be able to kind of use the ground to kind of propel their body through space. Even just like certain lifts using dumbbells, kettlebells, and really in a good form matter, certain exercises doing fast, right? To like a controlled kettlebell swing, I use a lot of landmine exercises with the barbell, and just learning and training how to move things fast. So that's going to produce some force production on top of develop fast twitch muscle fibers over time.
I want to get into some of these questions.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't know the answer to this one in particular. So the first question is it possible to track speed into a net, or do you have to be at a range? And I'll throw in even like an indoor simulator kind of thing. Can you do that in all three of those or both of those other alternatives, or is it really best to be at a range outside?
I think if you keep it consistent with the system or the monitor that you're using, at least you're seeing some sort of like metric, right? Mm-hmm. If you go from like one TrackMan and then go to your home and your net and then go to like a Golf Tech, like they're going to be skewed a little bit away. You have to kind of make sure the metric's consistent, and it might be off to where the true number because some of those radar systems might be off by like 2 to 4 miles an hour, but at least you're getting numbers, right? Yeah.
Listen, it's like stepping on a scale. Okay. My home scale is the right one. Anything at the doctor's office doesn't count. Okay. That's obviously wrong. Okay. So I get what you're saying. Like use the same, I want to say radar.
Yeah. Monitor, swing TrackMan, something, as long as it's consistent and you feel like you're getting like somewhat accurate numbers from it.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Lori, did that answer your question then? And then also, what was the name of the book, Andrew, again? Can you just say it one more time, even though I think we have it right?
Yeah, it's Strength and Conditioning for Golf, a guide for coaches and players.
Okay, cool. So that's
I
that.
can tell you the site, but I have to order it from a guy that I know who's more of a researcher.
Yeah. Okay. And then finally, Melinda wanted you to recap the 3-strike sequence. And then before we end, 5 warm-ups, 5 of something, 5 to 10 all out. Just go over those exercises that you talked about before.
So going through the 3-strike method again. This is the first one.
3-strike method. And, while we're on it, let's do the 15 to 10 driver swing practice that you mentioned before that too.
So the 3-strike method, let's say you're going to your coach and it's like, okay, I want to do this today. And you kind of send them, I can send you the link to what, because the TPI, Dr. Greg Rose was talking about it in like 3 minutes. Like I'll send that video to you, Tori.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
But, it's going to be pretty short. So let's say, again, you warm up normally, take 5 minutes to like just hit some balls, right? And again, if you have a TrackMan there, this is going to be ideal. And then just hit one of your drivers and just kind of see what the number is, right? It's time to take a normal swing. So that's swing 1. Okay, your next swing, just try to hit it harder. It doesn't even have to be all out. Just kind of make that number go higher. Okay, if it goes higher, okay, you're still good. So your rest period should be like 15, like 30 seconds. Like give yourself some time. This isn't rushed. Okay, third swing. Okay, the swing speed number, okay, goes up again by 1 mile an hour. Okay, you're good. Take another rest. Okay, now we're starting to get like a little gas. That fourth swing, if that number is lower, okay, that's 1 strike. And now let's take like a minute break, kind of get your wind back. Okay, let's say that the swing again back to that kind of that higher baseline number. Okay, it goes up again. Okay, again, take your break. Okay, now we're on swing 6. So again, if you take another swing and that's lower than your last one, okay, that's strike 2. Right? Take another break. Right? Let's say that swing number 7, okay, is still lower. Okay, that's strike 3, like you're done. That's it. So then you can either stop. That might have been like 5-7 minutes worth of work, but then maybe just go to like a normal, like whatever your routine is practice wise, or go putt, or even. So this is something I would do in the beginning, not at the end of a range session. Because again, it's going to be skewed from if you're banging 40 balls or practicing and then go straight into a speed session, like or a 3-strike method, then it's going to be skewed because you're tired. Right. Mm-hmm. But again, play with it. If it takes you 40 balls to get warmed up, then do that. But I wouldn't go like not hitting any balls at all. Don't warm up and then go straight into like a 3-strike method. For the one I've used before, again, this is for online clients. Like I tell them, okay, give me 15 swings. Okay, 5 or just warm up. And again, have some sort of like metric system recording this. Like each swing, you're writing down a number. So 5 warm up swings. Let's say they're 100 miles an hour. 99, 100, whatever. Next 5 is more competitive. So like if you're just normal playing or even like a fairway finder, okay, just try to hit it straight, but make sure it's like competitive like you usually do. And you're recording all those numbers. So it could be, okay, now it's 103, 102, 104, okay, 103. Okay, the next set of 5, like this is where like you're getting after it. Okay. And we want those numbers to be higher. So if you're hitting, on your all out swings and one of them's at like 101, then it's like, that you're not pushing the limit. So try to kind of swing to the point where like, I'm going to try to really hit this further. And a lot of things start going on in your mind. You tense up, you think too much. This is one of those things you can practice where you get more comfortable, where you know how to start delivering more of a like intense swing. So it just takes practice, just like anything, right? Getting into golf takes practice. It's the same thing for, strength training, lifting weights. Like you're not going to go straight into like lifting heavy. Like what's that mean? You have to start at a baseline of, how many reps do I get to this certain point where I hit failure? Okay, next week, if I try to make those reps a little bit more, next week I'm going to increase weight. So it's just like there's steps to this process.
And again, I know we talked about this with Lou last week, and Justin, you hit on it, and Andrew, you hit on it today too. But the light bulb for me really is, okay, we're going to the range, we're swinging hard, we're doing these practice sessions, these training sessions that we have a routine that we're following to practice increasing our speed and swinging hard. You then go onto the course and you have a level of trust in your training, knowing that you're not swinging 100% on the course by any means. This is not what's happening on the course. You just have faith and trust in your training that your regular, quote unquote, regular golf course driver swing is getting faster because you're practicing on the range at full speed. That's really been a light bulb to me. Like, we're not going onto the course and actually swinging super fast. Like, that is not our goal. Our goal is doing that on the range and then going on the golf course and having our regular everyday swing just starting to get faster. And we don't even really notice it anymore other than seeing our ball go farther. I don't know. It's simple when I say it out loud, but it really was a light bulb moment for me. This is a great question. So she says, I noticed on the videos that you post with Wyndham Clark. For anyone listening, Andrew trains with the 2023 U.S. Open champion, Wyndham Clark. Okay. And if you follow him on Instagram, you'll see him. But Wyndham trains barefoot. What's the deal with that, Andrew? Is there a thing to it? Because I would never work out barefoot. I'd be too scared. I'd actually think I wouldn't be able to work as hard barefoot. That if I had sneakers on, I'd be able to work harder. What's going on there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's kind of it used to be a bigger philosophy of ours, but just shoes protect our feet, but then they're terrible for our feet, right? So think about like going throughout a whole day with like gloves on your hands, right? Trying to do stuff, trying to type, try to work. So it's like there's so many muscles and sensory neurons in our feet that if we're in shoes and then on top of socks and then certain footwear that's out there, depending on dress shoe, work shoe, heels, our feet get jacked up pretty good. And then you put feet into golf shoes, which there are, again, some terrible ones and there's some better ones, So the foot, the ankle, like it's a complex where it's like it needs to move, right? Our foot moves like this. We go in pronation, supination, right? Extension, dorsiflexion, plantar flexion. So if we're stuck in a certain position in a shoe or like a heel, this is how it's going to kind of mold into over time, right? Unless we kind of let it breathe. We do some sort of like, doesn't even have to be training. It's just walking in your house kind of barefoot just to kind of get those feet to kind of get those muscles moving in a certain way. So it's just like any other skeletal system in your body or your muscle. If you sit at a desk for 8 hours a day and then try to go do something intensive or exercise wise, like something might get jacked up. So the feet's kind of where everything starts. So to kind of go on a long tangent, like Wyndham, like he just knows like this, that's his preference. I don't even tell him like, take your shoes off. Like I tell him to put his shoes back on when we do certain like jump work, something with like the sled, something ballistic, but that's just what he's comfortable training as, just because again, being a pro, like he's in his FootJoy shoes like all the time, which aren't comfortable, right? They might be good for like certain sequence of his swing and keeping stability and not spinning out because he swings it like an animal because he's a freak in nature. But him just training to kind of make sure that his feet are healthy, strong, just like anything a part of our body, like he's really big into that. But again, it's not like all the time we're doing sprints outside with bare feet or pushing the sled like crazy. Like we've done that before. There's really a lot of good research that's pretty good for you in doses. Again, don't go to the gym tomorrow at a Lifetime and start doing box jumps with no shoes on. Right. So it just starts with, making sure your feet are getting the proper movement, just like any other muscle, because there's a lot of muscles in your feet. There's a lot of joints. And then especially with the golf swing, there's a lot of force going one way. So the foot tends to like mold into a certain position, or if it's compensating where again, the footwear is always kind of makes it stuck. And now we're trying to produce power, like something's going to happen to the rest of our body compensation wise, because our feet aren't strong. Right. So that's where that kind of comes in.
That's really interesting. Okay. Such a good question. Thanks for asking that and answering it. Okay. Justin, do you have any other questions before we wrap things up at all?
Is there anything daily that someone can just easily be doing at home that could be like just a way to just kind of increase speed, maybe even just something simple that doesn't require weights or exercise bands or anything like that? Is something like, could somebody step out of bed and do some type of a exercise just on their own on the side of their bed, just like if someone said, hey, I can put 5 minutes or 10 minutes in just before bed or right when I wake up in the morning? Like, is there something like that you could do that if you just did every day would help you on the speed component?
If I was going to be honest, I'm going to say no. Like there has to be some sort of intent and progression in some way, right? So again, I'll kind of use like a race or like a sprinting example or something. If I just walked out of bed and it's like, hey, I want to be faster tomorrow, and I just, start doing some stretches right when I get up, like there has to be some sort of like habit in place. So if it's to the point where, hey, right when I get up, get through my routine, make sure I'm awake, like before, like for 5-10 minutes, okay, I'm going to do some squats or something, like starting out with body weight, right? And then the next week it's go, okay, instead of doing squats, I'm going to do some jumps just to kind of progress up in some way. Like there has to be some sort of like adaptation, right? Because like getting out of bed, doing a few stretches, like again, it's going to be half-assed. I'm not trying to be, rude like that. It's just like there's just so many like people want quick ideas or even exercises. Like how do I get that all the time? Like what exercise should I do to increase speed? It's just like there's not just one thing, right?
Yep.
There's a cool thing. It's not even one workout. Like there has to be some sort of plan in place where it's just like, hey, even to the point I might tell people, hey, skip the gym and just work on your swing, right?
Yeah.
Especially with a lot of gym bros or even females that are pretty good with working out, pretty intense. Sometimes I might tell them to back off because of the point it's like it's hindering because you're not producing any power. All you're doing is going through circuits, doing lightweight, which is all beneficial. But it's like if we need to produce output, like there has to be some sort of intent involved. And I'm not saying like certain exercise or things that can't benefit other way. Stretching, mobility routine in the morning, even at night, it's going to help with the recovery process. Even just a daily walk in the mornings, just kind of get, vitamin D, like for all longevity health standpoints, like that's all good. But if we're looking to kind of tap into like more speed stuff, force production, it's going to take it's going to take some stress. Like it's going to take a little bit of like work on some parts of muscles in the body.
That's a great explanation. And that makes total sense, which probably should be a good indicator for everyone listening that if you don't have somebody that you've considered, joining and working with on a one-on-one basis, it's definitely something that you should be considering, and building a plan. Because if you want to build speed, obviously it's not something you can just do overnight. You need a plan similar to what Andrew has placed out for us today. So that's great.
Absolutely. And if you're not in the Phoenix Scottsdale area and you're not lucky enough to just go make an appointment with Andrew in person, he has lots of online options that you can look into and work out at home or at a gym and just follow his programs right online. Or Andrew, if they want to find someone in person in their area, what do they look for? Like, how do you find someone that is a good fit for a golfer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The first shortcut would be either go through you to get through me, right? Especially if it might be, hey, this person's in Tennessee. Like I might know someone right away to kind of give you information. Mm-hmm. Also, like TPI usually has like a trainer hub where it's like they have certain gyms where they're located. So at least there's getting that sort of information. So it's just on the TPI like website, and then there's like a trainer search, mm-hmm. and then kind of look in your area and there'll be like pinpoints of gyms that are TPI certified. That's one way. What to look for is this, making sure you go through like a consult process, make sure it's something that you can really like trust and like work with, instead of like trying to find like a sexy pick where, oh, he works with the pros, like he has to be good, right? I like to go through like a whole process of just getting to know somebody and making sure that we're a good fit. So if you find a trainer that kind of goes through that process, takes time, goes through like an assessment, offers like, hey, we're gonna go through a workout the next day, like that they're gonna be good. The red flag is where you get someone like, oh yeah, the program's this much, I'll sign you up tomorrow. They don't do any sort of assessment and they just kind of, oh, this works for everybody. Like that's where it's like you kind of keep looking, right? So make sure you kind of do a little bit of research or just ask Tori and she can go through me. And
then one final question here, Bonnie asked, do all TPI trainers work in speed training? Which is a good point. So if you are a TPI training, are you really training for speed to get like overall anyways? Or do some trainers really train hard in gaining speed? Is there a difference?
Yeah, it depends. Like, I'll be honest, for me, like Tori, you know, like TPI wise, like I haven't really utilized much of their system in years. Like I'll utilize their assessment sometimes if someone works for it, but there's other philosophies and methods and systems I've learned that to me I've compiled together under the same hub and it works. So that way I have more in my tool belt to kind of know what to work with, what's in front of me. So there's different certifications that trainers have. So there's like level 1 and level 2 is like power development, and level 3 is like extra power development. So there's different certifications TPI trainers have. So that's good to look for too. But again, if it's to the point where they have a bunch of letters by their name, you don't get a good vibe from them, then it's just like, you know, you can still keep looking. There's better ones out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also worth noting too, it's only going to go so far if you're not working with a swing coach too. So the best possible solution is working with a trainer and a swing coach at the same time. And that doesn't mean you need to get a lesson every single week. Maybe that's once a month. Maybe it's once every 6 weeks. But you really want to be doing this together. So, Andrew, thank you for being on today. I really appreciate you coming on and talking to our Breaking Bogeys crew. If you guys have any questions after the fact, after we get off today, just put them in the community chat. I'll pass them on to Andrew. He'll let us know a good answer to that. Andrew's going to share that video with us, and then I'll also put this PDF file in our membership portal so that you can print it off yourself and have a copy too. All right. Thanks, Andrew. I appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you. Great.